Welcome, AfterBuzzers. You're watching the after show for Greenleaf, Season 4, Episode 5, Unwanted, where tonight we talk Charity's Change of Heart, Bishop and May's Rocky Road, and Grace faces AJ's Truth with Grace, Merle Dandridge, star Greenleaf herself. Stay tuned for more.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome back, Greenleaf fans. We are back for a special episode. I'm your host, Shaka Smith, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Miss TK Trinidad.
What's up, y'all?
You can see her every week on Women's Weekly Wrestling, and we've got Thelma and Bezaway Daniel.
Hello, guys. I'm so happy to be here.
Who you can catch on Sundays on our after show for Succession, and of course, we have Grace Greenleaf, Merle Dandridge, star Greenleaf herself. How are you?
Hey, Shaka. Hey, it's so nice to be with y'all.
Yes,
We're so happy
yes.
to have you.
Amazing to have you.
I don't think I've been here since season 1.
Season 1, yeah.
Which, let me just say, what kind of incredible support that you all have been giving us.
Oh, well, you guys have given us the stories and the entertainment.
The drama.
And growth, like
Well, it's-
impeccable growth as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, that's fantastic. But to have a forum like this where people can really talk about the ideas and the thoughts, because we break down some big ideas.
Yeah, and in ways that, as the viewer, we haven't seen before. We haven't seen a lot of this mega church drama on black television before. So it's just nice to be able to have these stories that we can discuss.
Exactly. So the fact that you guys are making a place for that is really, really wonderful. So I'm grateful. Thank you, because I know it's a lot of work, and every week really doing that. And the way people come up to me on the street and still need to have these deep conversations about what's happening,
Yeah.
it needs to be talked about. So thank you.
Yeah, we love it. It's our honor and our pleasure. So, well, let's get into our overall thoughts of this episode. I'm still like floored. I watched it this morning because I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's deep.
There comes the reveal. That's the pre-tape. But yeah,
It is.
It was a great show. My thing is I relate a lot to Grace, and my biggest takeaway from it is that because Grace is almost like a fixer, now that, AJ has revealed everything that's gone on in his life, is she now going to look back at all the decisions that she made and question them? Because that was my thing. I was like, dang, did I make all the right decisions in my life? Like, look what Grace is going through. So that was kind of my biggest thing, especially with AJ and him talking about, his experiences.
Right.
Yeah. I agree completely, and I think that unravel kind of started with Sophie, the episode before, where it was that wake-up call for Gigi, where it's like, listen, you have always been saying this, and you've stood on this pedestal, and now you kind of have to face it in the mirror. And I think this episode gave us a lot of language to a lot of the things that we felt like she might already be going through. So I'm really interested to see how that continues to come back.
yeah. For me, it was about the work. I said, this family's not done yet. This family still has a
They'll
lot
never
of...
be done. There's a lot of work.
There were moments where it felt like things were going on the right road and that they were starting to find some healing and the communication was starting to be on the same level. But this episode got me to where there's still a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, what I really loved is that everyone was very specifically confronted with who they are and what they have done, and they really had to look inward. And I feel like I love that there was even a moment where Jacob just was like, God, I need you to handle this, and I feel like everyone is going to the place where they just need to get down on their knees and surrender it, because for Grace to look into AJ's eyes and to see the actual result, for him to lay it out I think she knows he might not have had the best life, but for him to lay it out for her, it's a lot deeper and a lot more painful than you think, and that is a result directly of your actions, and what that must feel like for her.
Continuing action. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not over.
Yeah, I think that was one of those moments, again, it's like a quick reminder as human beings, like we're not only responsible for our intentions, but also the implications of them. So it's like, it doesn't matter. It does, but it doesn't really matter what you intended to do and how you wanted it to help and where you were, because look at this person, look where he is. And a lot of the fears that you had, even would kind of like mix that relationship between Sophie and AJ. It's like, was it really worth it at the end of the day?
And I mean, Charity gets confronted with that. She has to look the result of her actions in the face. Lady May has to really.
She's been doing that for a while now, and it's like every episode gets worse.
But she's also been pushing it too. I think Lady May is such an introspective place where she's letting everybody know, like, the way we did it in the past is not the way it's going to work. So she keeps echoing that, like, come back to ourselves, come back to vulnerability. Like, we can't try to do things the raw way that got us to where we are. We have to unthink and unlearn that process.
But it's going to be the same thing. It's almost the same thing as, you know, the position Grace is in. Lady May, I think Grace got that from Lady May. Lady May is a fixer. Even though we didn't agree with a lot of stuff that she was doing, she did it with the intent of, you know, securing her family and the legacy. So now she's taking a different approach, but still trying to fix things.
And she's still got some fire to go through.
Did you notice in that end scene that I picked up an apple? I did that on purpose. I was like, is this too on the nose? Is this too on the nose? You know, like Garden of Eden and also apple tree. Here we are, you know, Mama, I'm not so different from you than I thought.
And I think that has been like the reoccurring current throughout this season is like that realization. Because I think it was even said to Grace, like, okay, you might be doing it this way, but you're still doing what your mom would have done. You know, and are you sure that this is the right thing to do? But you're still trying to be a fixer in some way. You're still trying to hide things.
And what I loved about this episode is who would have thought Charity would be the first to kind of come to her senses in a sense.
Let's not even talk about Charity right now. I'm like, sis,
oh my God.
I'm so upset. I've been upset all season.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I gotta ask because I thought Charity was gonna really go down this road. I thought she was gonna really be fully invested in like screwing her family over, which to me didn't meet the truth of who Charity was.
It's not a character.
But it just seemed like that's where she was going. Were you guys surprised at all by this change of heart?
Well, I think she's not as committed to that. Like, she thought she could do it, but that's just not her. However, then you see Philip Dumas like pretty much just bait her into going, because that's what's going to happen. He's baiting her into going back into the same direction because, you know, he's using his suaveness and all this other stuff. And it's just kind of like, Charity, girl, like, you're not going to do that anymore. So therefore, do not fraternize with the enemy because he's the enemy. So, like, why bother sit down with him? That was my thing.
She's so vulnerable
Yeah.
and it's so dangerous.
And it's so, it's kind of like a predator, you know what I mean? They know who to go after. And I think Charity is just screaming of this like vulnerability that is so detrimental to her family at this time. And I think that the same way everyone is going introspective, she needs to realize that she's the source of a lot of her problems because I think that delayed gratification. Okay,
too
then
late.
at that point, about it. Like, what is it that you feel is so unredeemable?
Well, not unredeeming. I think we, as people, we have a certain almost set of characteristics, and then, you know, the ones who are self-aware, we're able to change, you know, some of it, but we're kind of the same type of people. And Charity, I think she's very vulnerable, and that is a good thing when she's around the right group of people and she's in the right headspace. But because she's not in the right headspace, and you have people like, you know, Philip the Predators seeing that, it's, you know, it's not going to work out.
But she had that moment. Wait a minute. She had that moment. She's realized that she I think she knows she's vulnerable. I think she knows that about herself. I think she sometimes wants to give in and she goes with it.
Right.
But she knows that she is sort of a little vulnerable and she just plays within that boundary. But she had that moment where she realized what she had done. She went up to Phil DeMars and in no uncertain terms, she told him, "I'm not doing this.
Well,
I'm not going to give you anything more on my family.
Right.
I'm done."
She realizes she's vulnerable, but she doesn't realize that she could be taken advantage of. Because if you realize that part, then
I think she does realize, and I think she allows it because I think it's sometimes easier to be comfortably taken advantage of.
Then we need to pray for Charity.
But that's I think even in the best moments, that's still who Charity is, right? So like even having a moment with Bishop where it's like, oh, you're the heart of the family. Just it takes little crumbs to really kind of like bring her back into that like reassurance that she's seeking. And I think that that's just a symptom of the problem, which is a deep brokenness within herself. So until she kind of like addresses that self-esteem issue, that true confidence, she can never be the associate pastor that she wants to be. She can never be the sibling that she wants to be. She can never be the friend that she wants to be because she's still able to be leveraged through that vulnerability of acceptance. So I think that that's the issue that I'm having with Charity.
And to be sitting right next to the sister who triggers you so much, and of course Grace has so much guilt about, you know, possibly having even left her in the path of a predator when she was young, you know. I think she was just so, with all of Grace's stuff, needed to get out when she was young, so all of a sudden after she's gone, she's like, oh, I did leave Charity behind. I did leave her in the wake of so many things. So many things.
And
so I think that's why she keeps giving Charity a little bit more rope and forgiveness and constantly,
Yeah.
And we don't think Phil has actually laid his cards out on the table at all? Or do we think that Phil is actually being honest about the role he had to play in order to try to come up? And is that
he's laying the right cards.
But is that
he knows what to do.
That's what it is.
Is that the reality of the situation? No, he was in a situation where his church was taken over, and then he had to make some hard decisions.
Yes. Oh, we feel so bad for Phil. I feel so bad for
Phil. He probably wasn't.
Play it, please.
He was in that situation, but then he also sees that he picks the weakest link.
Yeah.
So he still needs to get work done. He still has a goal in mind, and Charity's going to be part of that plan, and he's going to try to bring her in by hook or by crook. So if he's going to use his suaveness and all this other stuff to get her there and tell her a story in a way where she's going to feel like, oh, then he's done his job.
Yeah.
So he's laid out his cards, but he's laid out his cards in a particular way.
Did you see that twinkle in her eye when she was reading the book again?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, girl.
I thought that was a sweet moment.
Are you serious?
Sweet.
Oh my gosh, Shaka, I can't with you.
I thought he's laid his
it was
cards
very
on the
calculated.
table. Charity is someone who needs. It would be nice to see her in a nice relationship where she feels supported.
With Phil?
Are you serious?
Are you kidding? First of all, the whole
You cannot
stop.
be serious.
Please stop.
You cannot be
Please stop.
serious.
No.
I thought once he had the moment of laying his cards on the table and respecting
He
her.
laid his cards.
No.
He laid his cards on the table,
Only
but
to
he
manipulate.
Yes,
There was a
there's
manipulation
emotional part of
tactic.
it.
Yes.
That's like a guy going on a date, laying his cards on the table,
Absolutely.
with the intent of getting the booty and not having a relationship.
Yeah,
That's exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
This took a left turn. I do agree.
That's
I do agree.
exactly right.
You go, TK girl.
I'm sorry, I'm on their side.
Slide on over this way.
Well, we're gonna have to take a poll of all the guys, everyone listening right now. So, Thelma, if you could let them know if they could join us and give us some comments.
Absolutely, guys. You know we love you so much. You keep us current. You keep us talking, and we are the ESPN of TV talk only because of you. So go ahead and log in. Whether you love reality, sci-fi, drama, comedy, sports, whatever it is, go ahead and comment, like, subscribe, and you know we'll be able to shout you out in the live chat because we're so grateful for you guys. So stay tuned with us as we continue the rest of the show.
Yes. Thank you, guys. And so, just let us know if you're feeling Philip and Charity together or not.
No, that's not even an option.
You know what?
Not an
Across the
option.
board, in case you guys, for those listening on iTunes and Spotify who are going to rate us, we're all shaking our heads now.
Absolutely.
Sean Blakemore, who plays Phil, he's really funny. Obviously a great actor and a great guy, family man and all that. Shout out, Sean, we love you. But he's always joking with me on set, calling me like, sis, hey, when I'm in the Greenleaf family, and I'm like, if you want some serious side eye from me, that's how you get it.
I think the writers could get there. It could feel genuine to the audience, but there would have to be some serious, unpacking of what it started off as, and also real growth in telling Charity some of the things that we've talked about, right? Some of the things that they're both working on. So I think there'd have to be a strip down of vulnerability for us to even start to believe that this could be a genuine connection.
So you actually think this is actually even possible?
No. I think it could only be possible if the back work is done. As of right now, I don't think it. No. As of right now, I think it couldn't be.
She's like, I don't know what kind of back work y'all need.
We're in America. There's Memphis. There's people beyond the church. You don't need to date people that's in the church. Let's is there a Christian mingle app? Let's get Charity on that.
Oh my gosh, should I get Charity on eHarmony?
On eHarmony?
Yeah, get Charity on that. We don't need Charity mixing in the church.
Speaking
We'll save that for predictions. We'll see what happens then.
That's in episode 6. Hey sis, so I have this website I want you to see.
Well, I'm like, Bishop might be on the website soon.
Noah's definitely headed there.
We had a rocky road. This was
clutch
tough
my
for
pearls.
Bishop, man. I'm telling you, Bishop is getting more and more tired of me. But he tries. He always comes back.
What do you mean obey?
He always comes back, but at some point I'm like, he's just gonna not come back.
No, he's always gonna come back. How long have they been married for? Lady Mae has not changed. She's changed in certain ways, but the core of who she is probably who she was before she had kids. So he knew what he was dealing with, and I feel like he's been here this long enough. Then he needs to just keep on going that road.
Innocent.
He did say something to me that made me think when he said,
He said something to you.
Well, He said,
Yeah.
you know, that's how I feel on the show. They're talking to me.
You
But
are,
he said,
yeah, me too.
He said, I haven't told you how I felt about Lionel and this whole.
Yeah, I didn't once bring that up.
Yeah.
That's a really good point because she was just laying all of his demons, all of his garbage, rehashing all the stuff, you know, and in in relationships, what do y'all think? That just really had me in my feelings. When he said that, I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
Well, that made me think he's getting to that point where he may not come back that next time.
No,
because those feelings have to be so deep, and he hasn't had the opportunity to express them. So I think they're multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And when you don't express, it's a powder keg.
I think that's fair, but I think even more so, what could be even more frustrating to a person is the assumption, right? Is because you know how I feel about my daughter. You know that this will always be my daughter. You know how I feel about the things surrounding this situation, but you don't really know the core of how I'm feeling. And to assume is the issue. I think that's when you then take me out of it, and then it becomes all about more of me and more of the toxicity that we've had in our relationship. I think that's more detrimental than how he really feels, because he even said this season, I'm still here.
No, I mean how he feels about the betrayal. He just hasn't said anything. He really hasn't said, this hurt me.
She also doesn't seem like she's gonna talk about it too, and he probably also knows that. It's one of those things where you know some people, they just immediately shut down, and you're not gonna get anything from them. And she seems like that type of person where it's just certain things she's not going to talk about. So maybe that's one of the reasons why, he just didn't even want to bother with it. I personally don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere, but I feel like she doesn't have a right to not talk about it.
I think that's...
She doesn't, but she just doesn't seem like the person.
How did you feel last season when he forgave her so quickly? For, Grace not being his biological child. That's huge. His favorite child.
He hasn't even I feel like he hasn't even fully unpacked how he feels about that.
There's a lot of stuff going on, too.
I think that's leaning into faith. For the bishop, he just had to lean into God and lean into faith in that moment. That's all you can do in that moment is do that. But I think he's been holding on to that. But the more she keeps poking the bear, that faith gets shaken.
Right. You have a man who's going to do that and go all, relies on God and gives it wholly over to him and said, you are still, I still honor this bond. And yet she still is bringing up this petty stuff on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah. That is.
And he even tries to please her. Remember when he went to go and he got the information about the pastor for Lady May? Yeah. And she's like, we don't want that. And he's like, but this is what you do. This is. I'm just trying to go.
This is your thing.
Yeah, this is your thing.
I'm trying to get on your page.
Now you're getting upset. I'm so confused right now. I think beyond all of that, because the thing with life is there's always these ups and downs. There's gonna be something. Obviously, finding out your child's not your child is huge. But I think at the core of it, when they started this church and when they actually started in love and something beyond that. Some people just get married, just okay, we here. That's what we doing. I feel like they genuinely loved each other. So that's what's been carrying them through all those ups and downs.
I mean, I agree. I'm getting that feeling from Bishop. It's just.
I think you just want Bishop to leave, though.
No, I actually like them. And when he came back and didn't go to Atlanta, I said to myself, there's certain relationships that we're going to be together no matter what. I don't, however it looks. At the end of the day, we're together, and I felt that until that moment where he said, I haven't even told you how I felt about Lionel.
So, ladies, just to be clear. Shaka ships Charity and Phil DeMars and is all about Bishop and Lady May breaking up.
Yeah. I wanted to say together.
Sorry to just say Shaka has issues. We already know this.
You want to talk about something, Shaka?
I just want Bishop to talk about his issues.
I agree completely. I think that even with Faith and all the beauty of it, and I think Grace, he has a very special relationship with her. So at the end of the day, we've talked about this a lot within bloodlines and it being your child no matter what, right? That nurture curve. But I think that it's really important for him to first realize that he hasn't begun to unpack what that really means to him. Yeah. I think that's where it is. And then he's in a relationship that doesn't really give the breathing room for that level of vulnerability and accountability. So it's if I'm going to tell you how I feel about all this, what are we going to do with it?
And your partner's supposed to do that for you. They're supposed to give you that breathing room. They're supposed to say, I'm going to make myself available for you to talk, and Lady May doesn't do that.
But I mean, let's also take into account that Bishop had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
That will make you
change
pull things into focus real quick too. You know.
And so I think that probably brought him back to Lady May, but maybe.
And then also he was seduced by, I forgot her name on the show, Latoya Luckett.
Rochelle?
Yeah, he was seduced by her. So he might even from that experience, you know, having somebody that pay this attention to, but was actually using you, and you didn't even realize it. Like all these little things that happened within season 3, that he might be like, man, like. This woman, for all her faults, like we can do this together. Whereas the outside world, their intentions are not, as genuine.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's there, but we'll see.
Shaka, you just want.
I think Bishop's clear.
Family.
I think he knows what's up, and I think he's in a place of real. I mean, obviously he's gone through a retirement, and anytime a big life change happens, you have to reevaluate. And I love that they're touching on that. And I'm like I love that the show has touched on it, and lets you see him searching for what's my next step. What am I? He's looking to be. What is my purpose going forward? And we all have parents who have retired, and then you're like, you see when they start to lose. That fire, until they find that thing. Yeah. And then it's like, they're alive again.
Yeah, my mom went right back to work. She was retired for a year and a half and then went back to work. It's like,
because it's the purpose, right?
Yeah,
so what keeps you up at night?
Does Bishop stay with May if May doesn't continue on this path of growth? Because May to me is still very much growing and needs to continue to evolve.
We're all growing, Shaka.
Shaka apparently.
He's my prayer pit.
That's I like that one.
But I also think there's a touch of like continuation, like this generational. I wouldn't say generational curse, but this brokenness between like parents. So you see that going on, parent and sibling, parent and child. So I think that when that comes more into play this season, that could be another aspect for people to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, how are we really addressing our secrets? How are we really addressing this relationship with our children? And how can we stop this from maybe happening again in the next generation?
And the Lady May is also being confronted by different people.
Yeah, I was going to say the next confrontation, which is kind of the funnest one, was May and let's talk about May and Carissa. We actually got
sipping my tea.
We actually came to blows for that one, right?
Carissa, like, why would you do that in her bedroom? Like, it's just like,
she's like, hey, so
like you deserve.
You know why? Because she thought she was up out of that piece. She was like, I'm up out of here, and I'm going to give you my what's what, and then we get that reveal at the very end.
Yeah,
her face.
I mean, it was everything.
Thank you for your services.
Yeah.
Way to go, Kim Hawthorne. That was dope.
Yeah.
Like how she got that expression perfect.
She was like she was gonna puke.
That's the emotion you would have.
You could almost see her calculating, how do I go back to Lady May now?
Oh my gosh.
What did you guys think about that confrontation and Carissa finally getting off her chest what she fully felt about Lady May?
I feel like, yes, Carissa definitely has a right to that thoughts because, it feels like Lady May has been treating her, horribly and accepted other people in the family, but not Carissa. But I would personally have waited until I was fully outside the house. Because it's just like, when somebody owes you money or you're waiting for a check and you already spent the check before the check even came. It's one of those situations. Like, I'd rather have the check and that's like, now I could spend it. Like, I would personally just wait until I was outside the house to actually tell Lady May how I felt, whereas Carissa, and she's probably been sitting on it for a long period of time, so it's probably been eating on her. But even the furniture thing, like, why ask for the furniture?
Yeah. Well, I mean, she needed the furniture.
Yeah.
I think my biggest issue with Carissa is, I think it's been mentioned this season, patience, right? And just
but she's been patient for a long time, though.
It's been a minute.
It has, but I still think that there's a tact to how you maneuver. And I think even her daughter knows this. She's reading The Art of War. Like, there's a lot going on that I think that, like, she can kind of hold off on. So we've seen Lady May even, like, talk about her patience when it came to, like, selling the property, right? And then I felt like in this situation, she could have held her tongue. I know we've been waiting for this for a long time, but I think that there was a different chess move for her to play. Because now you've shown all your cards, and now you have no leverage.
I mean, there's always a better move to play, right? But I think for this moment, Carissa needed this for herself, and she thought it was a safe situation. that said, and I loved it as a viewer, I think she overstepped her bounds. That's still Jacob's mom.
Oh, yeah.
That's still your husband's mother. You can't speak to her like that.
Well, that's what I said, I think, last
leverage.
week or the week before. It's like, at the end of the day, like, you knew the family you were marrying. You knew, it appeared to me that Jacob's always been close to his family. Like, they live on the same property. You probably moved into the house when you got married. So you knew the people that you were dealing with, and you had a choice before you said, I do. If you're going to deal with this. Like, I think in her world, she actually might have thought that, okay, well, when I get him to myself, I'm going to move him away, and that's
I think Jacob made promises, though. Did you get the sense that Jacob made promises to her that she's been relying on for...
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to something that Chris had said maybe last season about how her mom made her feel like she was leveling up, like she was lucky to marry into the Greenleafs, And I loved this scene because I know she comes off as, well, no, not comes off. She kind of is shrill and prickly around the edges, but the vulnerability with which she started that conversation, you're like, this is why. I mean, how much she has to stand up under for a couple of decades, It's not just like, oh, yeah, I didn't quit it, and his mom wasn't cute. No, it's like, I've been in this situation, and someone that I looked to openly have been a source of great pain for me my entire life. And not only have I had to stand up against you, but I've had to endure the humiliation of my philandering husband and all of this in the name of serving the Lord. My goodness, so that's a lot to hold on to. So I love that she had a moment to say that to her with her whole heart and say, how much you have hurt me. And I think it's important that Lady May take that in and understand that. The rest of it, Shaw, I don't know. But that part, I was like, oh, man, I feel that. And I'm glad that you had that moment, Carissa.
Yeah, because she'd been, to me, she made that exchange. Like, she was going to take all those losses, all those L's, the cheating husband. But at the end of the day, she thought she was getting this promise. She'd be the first lady of this church. And, Jacob would at least be in line well enough to feel like they were a family. And she never got any of it. And so that's why she feels so impatient, because it's like, it's past time. It's past due.
Why do you think Lady May and her never got along?
Two grown women, two strong-willed grown women in the same
very
house.
Strong, very, 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 very.
I mean, you
strong.
see how much doe-eyed just quietness Grace does all the time. Like there's so much she cannot say.
But what I love about Grace is the tact. I think that it's so important to know how to move strategically to earn a certain delayed gratification. So I think even in the moments where Grace is faced with the things that she does not want to do, she figures out a creative manner to kind of still get that point across in a way that she's not showing her hand. Because if you're trying to win the war, you can't be reactive.
Yeah, that's a journalist background. That's trained.
Well, that's what I love
Very
about
trained.
That's
Even that's how she pastors the church. It's like, oh, you want me to murder the church? Okay.
But she also comes from she's not in the deficit that Carissa is, like trying to marry into the family. She's the favored one. She's the one that's always been named chosen. She's always had the gaze of her father. And the entire church has always been like, oh, you're the one, which is, of course, Charity and Carissa, all of them would feel a certain way. They're like, well, what about my gifts? Right. And of course they have to strive and they have to show and and it comes out in different ways when they do not feel seen and appreciated.
And I think that's, to me, the interesting part of the relationship that Grace has with AJ is that all those gifts, all those positive instincts land flat with him. And you even see it sort of when they're communicating and she tries to reach out to him and she says all the right comforting things and she sees him in the right way and says, like, I don't understand. It just doesn't work. And I think that's what makes this relationship so interesting and nuanced. What did you guys feel about that break that AJ made with Grace on this episode? Even with the money, I couldn't believe that really was huge.
There's some decisions. I almost feel like you have to just rip the Band-Aid off and say, here, this is my son. this is what happened. Like it just, because by continuing to hide him, there's gonna be ramifications on that end of things, and it's just a situation that I don't know. I think we saw in the previews for the next episode that Grace actually has to go to her mom and is like, how do I figure this out? It's in a situation where you just don't know which direction to go because you thought you made a good decision 18 or 19 years ago, but now that wasn't the best decision.
And that decision has cost you like what both of your kids are in some ways. So I think for me it was really important for AJ to make that break because just as human beings, at the undertone, it could be like, oh, well, this is what he wanted. He just needs support. He just needs, he just needs the money or he just needs housing. But like, no, it's really like the fact that, you have abandoned me and I continue to feel abandoned. So I think him making that decision to step away from the financial support is a huge statement to say, like, this is not about money. I've already been struggling for so long. If you're going to come into my life and not as a revolving door. And I think that that's something that echoes from this show, but also just to like the reality of like how you have those parental relationships or even sibling relationships. It's like we need to transcend the transactional and it needs to be like unconditional because she's left him a couple of times now.
How have you reconciled, especially when you got the script to begin with, Grace's character with someone who seems like perfect essentially, and then that you made this choice and then it's a continuing choice to keep him a secret?
Gosh. Well, I loved that storyline. I loved the entire AJ storyline because it adds a whole other layer to the genesis of her story of when she was leaving home and all the Mac stuff was happening, that there was a whole other layer of things that were going on with her at that time. And the fact that she was in such a place of distress and it has caused all of these things to happen a couple decades down the road, I just feel like it's such a human experience where people can just be like, I was a kid. I was a kid. I didn't know what to do. So now when she's faced with, AJ says that when he came back to find her when he was 18, and he had just gotten free of his his situation. And because of that, because of her turning away from him again, he was hungry and ended up in prison. And now all of those, she's just so many things that she has done. And this saintly thing that I think Grace has around her just crumbles under that because it just makes her just vulnerable, human, approachable, and real.
Wow. Did you find that to be true, Thelma, when I think you said that you're so good you don't even see your own shadow?
Yes, I did.
Like, does Grace suffer from that?
Yeah, I think, and that's also the conversation that her daughter's trying to have with her, right? It's like, Mom, at the end of the day, and if you ask Grace, she's not making a conscious choice to keep him hidden. It's the choice that has to be made. It feels like a choice that's being made for her,
Okay,
right?
Is that so Lady May?
Exactly.
Right?
This is what has to happen, right? But I think Grace needs to come to that realization, like, no, I am choosing to continue.
All.
Exactly. So what are the ramifications of that? Because at the end of the day, there's so many people in that congregation and around the world that are freed by that understanding of like, she was a child. She was going through this. That doesn't take away from who she is and this saintly way that she's able to carry herself in terms of like decision making. But it's like, you made a mistake.
But now,
how are you gonna face it?
But now it is,
but also
a little different.
But he's been in town for a while. She's keeping it secret. So now it's your choices currently are what's going to affect what we're feeling about you.
Yeah, but that's also dealing with, yes, there might be a few people in the church who are like, okay, she was young, she made a mistake. But that's not going to stop the church from talking.
Absolutely.
So that's a whole other element in it because it's like, okay, well, the rest of her family, oh my gosh. But
she was the one bright light.
Yeah, Grace, she has it all together. And then it turns out that she doesn't have it all together. And now, I sometimes with the church, it's like the intentions are good, but then the human gossip part of it is not the greatest.
But isn't that what's wrong isn't that the bigger question that we're asking? Who has it all together? So why must we put on the facade that we do, right? So I think that's the corrupting premise of the church or of the secrets that really kill us at the end of the day. So it's like, I think Grace needs to come into terms, like she needs to make a decision of how she wants to handle the situation and free herself of the idea that it's being made for her.
Well, why don't you talk to Noah, maybe?
Yeah. Because he's back to learn to get to know his son. Yeah.
I just had a flash of the situation that AJ was in, having gone to prison and, wrong place, wrong time.
Falling asleep in the house.
Yeah. Generally good kid, and how she's trying to throw money at it. And I just had a flash to like the whole thing of young black men being incarcerated. Like, when they see us and how they, money is not just gonna take away all those things that happened to you unjustly, some horrific things, and the fact that I think this episode, Grace is finally understanding. I have to go farther. I have to do more, and I look forward to seeing how she takes that on.
As a viewer, I'm understanding that because I think AJ has walked the line for me between like vulnerable, I feel bad for him, and then danger, because he seems dangerous. Like, and I'm not sure what he might do in the next moment. And I saw that in that conversation he had with Aaron. But when he said to Grace, I actually stepped away because I didn't want to do something that would hurt you.
Right.
That to me told a lot about his character because he knew his motivation, but he just had to remove
Jacob
himself.
is just a doll. Jacob Gibson, who plays AJ. I mean, he's just so layered and beautiful what he's doing, and it just gets more and more incredible. You're just gonna fall for him over and over again.
And I think we also just in a greater scheme, we just have to recognize the cognitive challenges that people who experience heightened trauma go through. So it's like for him to even have the self-awareness to be able to state you know what, I'm gonna need a second. It's so important because he doesn't even realize, Grace probably doesn't even realize how much trauma she has gone through. So I think a lot of times when we don't lead with trauma-informed understanding, it's like then you're just re-victimizing the victim. I think that's the issue.
Yes. That's beautiful.
So I'm excited to see that growth. Of course, we have a little bit of news and gossip to get to as well.
That's good too.
Gossip.
We have gossip.
We have news and gossip. The gossip and news.
Some gossip.
Well, we'd love to know some of the stuff that we have coming up on Greenleaf. What are some of the things that we have coming up for
Grace?
Yes, for Grace, for sure.
For Grace and for Merle Dandridge.
Because we want to know both, of course.
Gosh, I don't know what to say about the season without giving anything away, but I'm so grateful for this season. So many beautiful things happen. And I think a lot of the things that the audience have been asking questions about, the Lady May Grace relationship is really going to get fleshed out. In between the sibling relationship with Jacob and Charity and Grace, I don't think we've seen a ton of that. So you get to see more of that, which I really think. And there's just a level of I don't know, just flavor and juice and ease and it's just fortified by all these years that we have been together, that the relationships just feel so wonderful to explore, and there's such a safety that we have with each other that we can do these really, really tough things together and find our way. I mean, just being able to see that moment in a couple episodes ago where all the Greenleafs were on the couch together. You've never seen that. You've never seen that before. They're evolving and they're changing. They're not always going to get along, and we know that for sure. But this is a family that does love the Lord and wants to make his love known, and they're just too caught up in their stuff. So I feel like they are just getting down on their knees this season, figuring it out so that they can do their work. They need to do their work so they can do that work. You know what I mean? And I just feel I'm so happy that we are doing that this season.
We feel it. We feel it as the
You
audience.
do?
We feel.
We do.
It's layers. Like the thing I love about this particular show is that we're not a monolith, so we're not the same type of black, and it's not the same type of mega church. Every church is different, but each character has so many layers to it. Like you can't watch season 1 and season 4. You see everybody evolve, and we're all our experiences. Life, like we're never not going to have experience. We're going to have experiences until we die. All these experiences, and that's the great thing about this show. It's like, okay, yes, Grace, Lady May, all of them are going through this experience, but we're seeing them evolve, we're seeing them make left turns, we're seeing them make right turns, and that's the great thing about this show.
And as the actors, I feel everyone living in their characters, but I love that the writing has brought them to a beautiful place where they're allowed to live in their characters. It's believable, it's grounded, and it brings us the emotion that we need to feel. I have a
question. Lynn Whitfield.
Yeah.
Is there somebody who writes particularly for her, or does she write?
Gotta be.
Yes.
Those lines. Are you kidding me?
Those lines are everything.
I know. The one-liners, they're iconic.
Yes.
And her
and
delivery.
epic.
She delivers them with the gravitas, but like also it's conversational. No, Nero was fiddling while Rome was burning, but at least he stayed in town.
Yeah, like
right, exactly. Well, we have a wonderful writers' room. All of them are fantastic, but specifically Craig Wright, our creator, he has a knack for writing for Lady May. I mean, it's. For somebody even to say those things coming out of anybody else's mouth would just be absurd.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just magic. You're like, oh, she said that.
Yeah.
It's
Magic,
wonderful.
and biblical.
I think another aspect of the show that I just love so much is just as a viewer, it puts language to a lot of the experiences we've had in life, whether growing up in the church or even like similarly the relationships you have with your siblings. And I think nothing on this show is a one-off. Like you can count off in a room who has experienced something similar or their version of something like that. So I think like that's really putting the bigger picture and the bigger conversation around even things like denominations and how that merger. So I think there are a lot of socio-political questions being asked and not being flushed out, which I like because then it gives the viewer the opportunity to kind of take that and be like, now let's take this to the conversation. Let's have dinner and let's continue to have a conversation about it. So that's what I love the most.
I can talk to my family about this, or we can go to the water cooler and we can break it down. Things that just were taboo before. Now that it's in a kind of a fictitious circumstance, they can talk about these big, painful topics more in a obtuse way, you know, and it's not so painful to get specific about it. But I love when my family's from Memphis and everybody's in the church, and so I said I have like 45 first cousins there, and we sit around and they talk about what the conversation is in their church and what it's done in that exact way, and it's really wonderful to be a part of something that does that.
Yeah.
And for Merle Dandridge.
Oh gosh, for Merle.
Second part to the question.
Nothing that I can talk about. I have some projects happening, but nothing I can talk about.
Any more singing?
I was just going to say,
People don't know.
And that's how I started too.
10 years on Broadway. I just did a Tony Award-winning show last year, Once on This Island, but I did a lot of things like Aida in the Disney on Broadway situation. So we're celebrating. I did a concert at Royal Albert Hall for Disney, and so they're celebrating 25 years on Broadway. And we're going to do a big Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS concert in the beginning of November. And we're also going to do a thing on The View in a couple of weeks, so you'll be able to see me on The View. Do with that kind of thing, and I don't know. I'm just living my life, visiting the homelands. I went to Africa, got a great chance to visit Oprah's School for Girls, and went to Korea, visit my family there, and spent some time in the temples with my family.
And your new family, the same way Grace is discovering new family members. AJ is discovering new family members.
Family.
It's an identity search. Same way your characters having an identity
exactly,
search.
and it's been really, really cool. So I have a lot of stories coming out of that in different literature forms and filmmaking, that kind of thing. So you'll see a lot of offerings from me.
Nice.
Oh, I love that picture of me and
Oprah.
Lizzo.
I have a question. So you are working with like legends. So Keith David, Lynn Whitfield, Bo Bridges. What is your
Can you believe my life? Sometimes I'm just like, is this?
Yes.
Me. Is that a dream?
And
even
Oprah.
that having those wonderful scenes with Mavis. I mean, it's just a dream come true.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've learned as far as acting wise that you're like, oh, like it's like almost like keys that kind of changed your acting?
Well, what's interesting is that as a stage actor, I'm used to a lot of words. Grace doesn't have a lot of words all the time. She's very reactionary, and so learning stillness is really Merle and Grace has been a real gateway to a lot of great insight and a change in my artistry and the way that I do things. And also, you know, the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, you know, putting that much time, I never thought I would be a leading role on a hit television show. It was never as big as I could have dreamed for myself. So to put myself in that position, accept it, because it took me a while to accept that. It really did. And to walk in that fully was a big change. And so to have these kinds of titans around me all the time who have been doing it for so long and have walked the walk, not just in front of the camera, but on stage and just in the cultural zeitgeist, you know, to know the implications of what that means to have a platform. It's been the best, I'm not even gonna say boot camp, it's been school for me. And I'm always a student, and I love when I get to grow and I get to get better, and I'm no longer scared of the camera. I used to be so scared of the camera, so scared of it. But so many things have changed, and just a little bit more comfort and ease with what I know God has put me on this earth to do.
You got the best playground.
One more question.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
You said you and Keith David sing on set.
Yeah,
Is there a
all the time.
particular song that you guys go to?
I think he's always surprised by the things that I know, because he loves old standards. But I'm from the stage as well, and I remember he heard me sing "A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square" not too long ago, and he was so confused that I knew that song, and so we just started riffing back and forth. But I think you might have seen on social, though, we also did a duet of "Baby It's Cold Outside." We like to sing that together.
That's sweet.
He's just a doll. I love spending time with him, and he's a wealth of knowledge, as well as all of them are. So they're generous with it, which is my great gain and gift and blessing.
Yeah, but I will just touch on just the growth that we've seen, that I've personally seen in your character, and also in just the semantics of the scenes. I remember we had the round table where everyone was like yelling at Grace, like, "Why didn't you stand up for us?" And you thought maybe she's gonna say something. What's gonna happen? And I thought the choices you made as an actress was so important, because it was so much more interesting than having a reaction, right? It was like that stand up. I think you like kicked the chair or something. It was like very calmly, "Excuse me," or "I have to leave." I think that moment was really powerful, because a lot of times we're wondering, okay, how is she going to react? Is she going to respond to it? But instead, it was very calm, which shows, I think, a lot of times even alludes to even more anger, because in real life, it's like, when I'm too calm,
You don't want any of this. You don't want it.
You don't want the smoke. So that, so many powerful moments.
I think she did the same. I think that last moment where she goes to Lady May and says, "My son." I thought that was, because you went to that one person that we know you go to lean on.
Oh, yeah.
But in that moment, she might be the one who understands you the most.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of great stuff coming up. So we're super excited for the future of Greenleaf.
Yeah.
So excited to have
you.
you here. Thank you so much.
And again, I'm so grateful. This is such intelligent conversation, and you guys are so wonderful supporting us. Thank you so much.
you.
And to you guys for
Yes.
watching. Thank you.
As always, guys, my name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
Oh, I'm Thelma Baseway Daniel. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter at Thelmy.
And you can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. Also check out tktrindad.com.
And Miss Dandridge, where can they find you?
Everything Merle Dandridge.
See you guys next week.
Ciao.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.